my name is Mike Ryan. The name of the show is Jury Duty, You Make a Difference on BNN, the show that hopefully will answer all your questions regarding the one-day, one-trial jury system. Our special guest today is Deputy Jury Commissioner John Cavanaugh. Thanks, John, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
John is a proud graduate of the University of Oregon. Started with the Office of Jury Commissioner more than 31 years ago, first as an operations manager, and became the Deputy Jury Commissioner in 2004. So today we'd like to talk about how jurors are used and what's meant by jury utilization.
Well, jury utilization is a measure of how efficiently the courts operate using the jurors as a resource. In other words, we're trying to bring in the minimum number of jurors required for the court to conduct its business. Jury utilization is basically a mathematical formula. It's the percentage of those jurors who appear that are either challenged, excused, or seated during the voir dire process.
And how are jurors selected, John, in Massachusetts?
Jurors are summoned from a list, a master juror list that's compiled from the annual Municipal Census as its source. The jurors are summoned at random. The summonses are mailed 12 weeks in advance of the appearance date. And on the juror summons, the juror will have options to defer their service, postpone to another date of their choosing within a year. They can change locations if they have a hardship. They can indicate a reason that they may not be qualified to serve. If they're not a U.S. citizen, don't speak English, have served in the previous 3 years, reasons like that.
What's the minimum age for jury duty?
You have to be 18 years old in order to serve.
So I could be in high school, I could be in college and be called for jury duty?
Yes, students are called and serve. There are no occupational exemptions. Once you're 18, you're eligible to serve.
Now, what about on the other end? Is there a cutoff as far as age?
It's not the same at the other end. If you're over 70 years old, you can choose not to serve. You can ask to be disqualified, but you can serve if you'd like. It's the juror's option once they reach 70.
And you encourage those people over 70 to come to jury duty?
Many find it a rewarding experience, and so we do. We encourage those. I mean, it's their choice. They can serve if they want. They're not required to, but if they have an interest in it, and we're glad to accommodate them.
Now, how many jury locations are there in Massachusetts?
Currently, there are 66 courts around the Commonwealth that are receiving jurors on various different schedules. Some 5 days a week, some as little as 2 days a month.
And what about where are the jury locations in Suffolk County?
In Suffolk, there are 7 jury locations, the largest being the Suffolk Superior Court in Government Center. There's also the Edward Brook Courthouse in the Haymarket section of downtown Boston. And then there are Boston Municipal Court locations in Dorchester, Roxbury, Brighton, and West Roxbury. And then there's a district court location in Chelsea. The West Roxbury location is currently, their jury session is suspended due to a large construction project going on around the courthouse that has limited the parking.
Now, am I assigned to a courthouse near my house?
Not necessarily. You could be summoned to any court in your county. The court assignments are random. Jurors who have a hardship appearing at the location to which they've been summoned, they can request a transfer to another location within their county that may be more convenient. A hardship would be if you have young children that you have to get on the bus in the morning, if you have a medical condition that prevents you from driving long distances, if you don't have a car and the court you've been summoned to doesn't have access to public transportation, reasons like that.
You said that jurors can postpone. Do I need to give a reason for postponing?
No. Anyone summoned has the right to one postponement for as long as a year. No reason is required. We will reschedule jurors more than once if it's necessary during the year. We encourage people not to take the full year's postponement all at once. You never know what's going to happen. Circumstances may change, and if you elect when you get your summons to postpone it for the full year and circumstances do change and it becomes difficult for you to serve, you're out of options at that point. You do have to serve within a year of the date you're originally summoned.
Now, if I get a jury summons in the mail, how do I respond to the jury summons?
You have several options. With the summons, there is a postage-paid postcard that you would return. You can request disqualification, indicate whether or not you're qualified, request postponement. There's a demographic survey to fill out. You could request a transfer. You could also visit our website, majury.gov. And you have all that same functionality available to you on the website that is provided by the card. The third option is you could call. We have operators standing by to take those calls, and they can assist anyone who's received a jury summons, provide information, or take your response to the summons. And that is at 1-800-THE-JURY.
1-800-843-5879?
That's right.
Very good. And about how many people annually receive a jury summons?
Well, the last few years we've been pretty consistently summoning between 650 and 700,000 people per year. That's down from a peak in the late 90s, early 2000s of as many as 1 million or 1.1 million, and I think was probably the highest we ever went.
And of those people who receive a jury summons, approximately how many people physically show up for jury duty?
Well, about 35% of the people summoned actually come in to serve. About 66% of the people summoned schedule their service. They're qualified. They have a date. Many of those aren't needed. They're scheduled far in advance, and as the date gets closer, some of the cases scheduled for that day may have resolved, either through a plea or a settlement in a civil case. So not all of the jurors scheduled are required each day, and some portion of them may be randomly selected and canceled, while others are told that they must report.
Now, how do you determine how many jurors are assigned to each particular jury location?
It depends on the number and the nature of the sessions at that courthouse. There are busy criminal sessions that would require more jurors, and if there are more judges working at a courthouse, then you would need more jurors. We also look at historical data, how they've utilized jurors in the past. If it's a court that requires a lot of jurors to get a jury for their cases, they would have a larger number of jurors appearing.
If each of these jury courts have their target number exceeded, what happens next?
Well, we would make periodic adjustments. We'd look at the number of jurors appearing based on the needs of that court, how many of those jurors are utilized. If we have instances where impanelments are running over to a second day frequently, we would increase the number of jurors appearing. If we have examples of courts where not all of the jurors are being utilized, a large percentage are not utilized, we would reduce the number appearing.
Now, you mentioned canceled. How are jurors canceled?
They can be canceled by by two ways. About 10 to 14 days before a juror's scheduled appearance date, we typically send a mailing, the last mailing, and for jurors who are scheduled to appear, usually it takes the form of a reminder notice that includes a map and directions and other practical information. At that time, some jurors may also receive a mailed cancellation notice. Usually that's as a result of us having received a better result from the summonses than anticipated. We have more jurors scheduled than needed, and we'll randomly select a few of those and tell them that they don't have to appear. On other occasions, the jurors are scheduled to appear, and then part of those instructions are to call a phone number the night before at the court, the juror information line. And there will be recorded messages telling some jurors or all of the jurors they must appear. Or it may say that some jurors or all of the jurors have been canceled due to the changing needs of the court. Jurors who have provided us with an email address also receive that information by email.
So in the instance of we had such a lovely winter, that's where jurors would be commonly canceled?
Yes, and we do provide severe weather or inclement weather instructions on that reminder notice. In cases of inclement weather, jurors are advised that they may call the morning of their service to see if the circumstances have changed, if because of weather there are any cancellations. We also send email messages in that event, and the information is usually broadcast on local media outlets as well.
If I'm canceled, what does that mean? Am I exempt from jury duty for 3 years?
No, it means that you've fulfilled your obligation under the summons, but unlike someone who has come to the court and appeared for service, there is no exemption period that goes with a cancellation. The following year, your name is back on the list. You may or may not be summoned. Some people may be summoned the following year. Some may wait 10 years before they get another summons. But the next time you are summoned, you would be qualified.
Any advice for jurors coming to jury duty in Suffolk County for the first time?
In the two downtown locations, we strongly advise jurors to use public transportation. There are no parking facilities at those courthouses. Parking in that area you pay a premium for. So we strongly encourage people to take public transportation.
And what else should jurors do prior to arriving at the courthouse?
The reminder notice that comes the 10 days before, on the back of it is a confidential juror questionnaire. And that should be filled out by jurors before they appear. Will speed the check-in process. And the information provided there is used by the judge and the parties in a case to determine if it's appropriate for that individual to serve as a juror. Those questionnaires are confidential, as the name suggests. The information on them is not stored in any way. And at the end of the voir dire, for jurors who have not been selected for the case, the questionnaires are collected from all the parties and destroyed.
And jurors should be truthful on the questionnaires.
It is very important to be truthful. You may be called to sidebar to answer questions. The judge may have other questions. You may be questioned by an attorney in the case. And in all those instances, it's very important to provide truthful responses.
Now, if I come to jury duty, what should I wear?
There is no dress code per se, but this is a serious occasion. The people who are at the court to have their cases heard expect that jurors are taking their responsibility seriously, and their dress should reflect that.
Now, you mentioned about selecting jurors. What actually is the source list? Is it the voting list?
No, in Massachusetts we're very fortunate in that we have the only state in the country that has a mandatory annual municipal census. That means each city and town each year, usually in January through March, conducts a census of all the residents of the town, and they compile what's called the street listing, usually with the assistance of the Secretary of State's office. And a copy of that list, or a copy of all people over 18 on the list, is provided to our office each year, usually sometime over the summer. And we'll spend much of the month of September preparing that list for use and summoning of jurors for the following year.
And do you do any sort of way to check? How many lists do you compile every year?
Well, we compile a list for each county, so that's 14 lists for our use for summoning jurors in Massachusetts. We also, as a service to the federal courts here in Massachusetts, provide lists for them for the 3 federal judicial districts.
Do you do anything with these lists? Do you run a battery of tests? Do you check names?
Yeah, we do a number of integrity checks on the list. When we first receive them, we look for duplicates, names that are missing first or last names, things that are clearly non-human names like public library or municipal garage, and we remove those from the list.
Occasionally people put their pets on the census.
It has happened. It has happened. We've had people list pets with first and last name and a date of birth. And if that date of birth indicates that the pet is over 18, there's no way of us knowing that it's a pet, and we have occasionally sent summonses.
Now, if families have minors, kids under 18, they occasionally end up on the census?
Yes, on occasion there'll be mistake in the census taking process, and someone who is under 18 years old, their name will appear on the census. There is a disqualification on the summons for anyone who's not 18 years of age, and that response can come to us, as I said, in any one of the 3 ways, either by phone, by returning the postcard, or on the website.
So when I'm coming to jury duty, can I bring anything with me? Can I bring food? Can I bring my cell phone? What can I bring?
Most courts have rules about what is allowed in and what is allowed there, and it's not standardized across the state. So if there are items that are restricted, it is usually on the phone recording that you call the night before you appear. They would usually list those items. Obviously, there are items that are not allowed in any court, like weapons and things like that, but there are varying policies on electronic devices, and there are policies on food and beverage that may vary from location to location depending on what's available in the courthouse or in the courthouse neighborhood. And any restrictions on those kinds of things would be in the tape recording, that message that you would hear the night before you serve.
If I report for jury duty, how long should I expect to be there?
It can vary greatly. Some courts, they have a short list of cases that they can get through and resolve early in the day. You may be released from juror service before lunch. Other courts, it takes longer for them to get through the business. They have a longer list, or a long impanelment may take place. and it may be the end of the day. Jurors should plan on being there until 4:30. That's the end of the court business day. And you should plan on being there until then, and you may get out earlier. You may have to come back on the following day or 2 days after if you're impaneled on a case.
Now, are there any exemptions from jury service?
Not exemptions per se. There are disqualifications. There are 10 disqualifications listed on the summons. Those disqualifications are statutory. If you don't fit one of the disqualifications and you feel that there is a reason that you cannot serve, you will have a chance to speak with a judge to be heard before you're selected to be a juror. And the judge would be making the decision as to whether you should be excused. That would be a hardship excuse at the discretion of the judge. There are no exemptions. Other jurisdictions may have exemptions for people in various circumstances. Some occupations, parents of small children, things like that. Massachusetts does not.
So judges, doctors, lawyers, teachers, deputy jury commissioners?
They all serve.
Now, have you gone to jury yourself?
I've served twice. One time I was seated in the box, in the jury box, and challenged by the attorney for one of the parties. On the second occasion that I went, all of the cases scheduled for that day were resolved without a jury trial, settled or pled out.
So people from all walks of life, doesn't matter if race, creed, color, occupation, religion, if you're eligible, you must come.
That's what we're looking for. We're looking for jury pools that reflect the diversity of our community, that all different walks of life are represented, and that the best justice is that delivered by people with a variety of life experiences. And then they get together in the deliberation room and having listened to the evidence, they apply their own experiences to that to determine the outcome.
Now, you mentioned grand jury. What is the connection with the federal jury?
The grand jury is different than trial juror service. In trial jury, if selected, you serve for the duration of one trial. Grand jurors, the term is generally 3 months, and the grand jury will hear evidence on a number of different cases that the DA brings before them, and they determine if there's sufficient evidence for that case to go forward. The grand jury is actually a protection for citizens against unnecessary harassment. It's there to protect people, and so it's very important. They serve a very important function.
How many people sit on a grand jury?
Generally 23.
And is grand jury, you mentioned 3 months, is that every day for 3 months?
That depends on the district, the county that you live in. Some, it is pretty much every day, 4 to 5 days a week for the 3-month period. In other counties that aren't as busy, the courts aren't as busy, then it can be shorter than that, 1 day a week or even less. There are other special grand juries that are impaneled for longer terms. Some sit for 4 months, some for as long as a year or more.
Now, you mentioned about the federal jury itself. What's the State Commission for Jury connection with federal jury?
We have a close relationship with them. We provide their jury list, their source list each year. They summon from the same list that we do, and it's every once in a while people will get summoned from both courts. If you're summoned to serve in a state court and you're served in any federal or state court or are currently scheduled to serve in any state or federal court and prior service in the previous 3 years, then you're not required to serve again. But
if I get federal jury, will they accept state jury previous service?
They sometimes will disqualify you. It depends on the term of your service in the state court. If it's, I think, 3 days or more, then they won't require you to serve again. Any less than that, they will require you to serve.
Now, you mentioned about that, the possibility some jurors may get dismissed earlier in the day. If I go to jury duty and I don't step into the courtroom, have I done my jury service?
Yes, by appearing in court, able and willing to serve, you fulfill your obligation. You get a 3-year exemption period after that. It's 3 calendar years, so 365 times 3, and then you're eligible to serve again.
So if I don't go in the courtroom, what was going on that did not allow me to go into the courtroom?
Well, the case is scheduled for that day. While you're waiting in the jury pool, the parties are discussing the case, making various offers as a way to settle the case, resolve it short of a jury trial. In many instances, neither party is particularly motivated to go to a jury trial. I remember being present in a jury pool once, and the judge came down to greet the jurors to welcome them, and he told the jury pool, he said that, I'm going to go and talk to the parties now, and I'm going to tell them, this is your last chance to decide your own fate. If I bring the jury in here and we start this case, then you're turning over that resolution to people you don't know. So this, you can settle it now and you can decide what the outcome is going to be, or you can take a shot with the jury and have that uncertainty, not knowing what the outcome will be.
Is it fair to say just the presence of jurors in the jury pool lead to a lot of cases resolved without going to trial?
It does. It's, sometimes having those jurors in the building is the impetus that the parties require to come to that mutual understanding of, this is the way that we want to resolve this case. They're not forced to face that reality to make that decision until they know that jurors are available in the building, and if they don't make the decision now, then the jury trial is going forward.
Now, is the goal of jury utilization to ensure that there's enough jurors for each court, but that they're not wasted?
Yes, that's our ideal goal would be, as a former chair of the Jury Management Advisory Committee said, that when you seat that last juror, then whether it's the 7th or the 14th juror, and you look out into the gallery in the back of the courtroom, there are no jurors left. Now, obviously, this is not a science. It's somewhat of an art. You never know exactly how many jurors are going to be required to impanel a case. You could have two cases that seem identical, but in one of them, say one of the parties is a longstanding member of the community, well known, and the other party is someone there's someone in the similar role, and the other case is no one knows them. They just moved to town. You're going to need more jurors probably to get a jury in that first case. But we don't want to bring any more people in than are required for the court to do its business. We understand that jurors are making a sacrifice to be there. They're rearranging their lives, that in many cases their employers are making a sacrifice. They don't have that employee services available to them for that day. And so we don't try to bring in any more people than are absolutely necessary for the court to do its business.
And pretty much most people, on average, are wrapping up after one day of service?
Yes, about 90% of the people that serve in Massachusetts serve just one day.
So thus one day or one trial.
One day or one trial.
Well, we've run out of time. We'd like to thank you at home for tuning in to Jury Duty Make a Difference on BNN. Just remember, if you have any questions regarding your jury service, you can always give us a call at our toll-free number.
1-800-THE-JURY.
1-800-843-5879. You can always get us on the web at juryduty.majury.gov. Just remember, when you do make a difference, when you come, it's important to all of us. Thank you, John, and thank you at home.